Hello, 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 and welcome to the Cheap Seats on 1WSR.com. Welcome and thank you for joining us. We've got the guys here ready to talk about all things Manchester United because suddenly they're on top of the world. And we're also going to talk about the derby, and we're going to talk about FPL and how it's messed up all our lives and all the people in our lives are angry at us. But we'll get there as we go along. Before we start and before I introduce everyone else, please do interact with us on these platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and also on Instagram. And the most important one is to like and subscribe on YouTube. We've got Wahid and Cyrus who are here for the first time. Dean, we were with you last week. Happy New Year, guys. How are you guys doing?
Good, thanks. Paul, I just want to ask you a question quick. You see my You see my second screen that I use for work. Mm-hmm. Where is it?
It's behind you.
It's on top of the table, just like me.
Oh, he says. But as you can see, it's below the shelf.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to get into how I'm going to kill you on this.
Okay.
I can't wait.
So Ole's at the wheel with Wahid and he's happy. Cyrus, how are you doing?
Good. No complaints. I mean, Chelsea tried to ruin my Christmas and New Year, but I realized there are things bigger than football. So I just watch it for the fun. But having said that, one of the funniest things is seeing Man United fans get so excited. It's like watching kids with candy for the first time. But we've been here before.
And Dean, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. I'm enjoying the league so far. I can't wait to watch Man United crash and burn, same as everyone that's been on the top of the table, and then Spurs to just ride that wave back up to the top. Can't wait.
Okay, Spurs riding the wave. Okay, so I think let's actually talk about it. So Manchester United, 1st of November, they play Arsenal, they lose. Everyone's jumping on, trying to figure out whether Ole is just a PE teacher. And then a run of 11 games comes through unbeaten, and it takes them with that game in hand that they always were telling us about to the top of the table last night. Wahid, describe what Manchester United fans are feeling.
Yeah, it's like a dog who's been chasing a car and then catches up to the car and then doesn't quite know what to do with it.
That's perfect. That is perfect.
I'm not sure what to make of it. Like, it's an indictment on the rest of the league that Man United are top. Like it really is, because we aren't good. Like we're not a good football side. We okay. COVID, the pandemic has created this perfect storm where us being top is something that's happened. It's created a storm where a title challenge is possible. It seems bizarre, but here we are. We're not even playing that great football. Like in this 11-match unbeaten streak, like we played okay. We played well at times. There's been catches in games where we have been very, very good. But the thing with Man United so far under Ole has been a lack of consistency. And yeah, it's really nice to be top of the log. And as Dean says, like, everyone's waiting for it. But United probably will crash and burn. That's the nature of it. United are probably not at a point in their development where we should be top of the league. We probably should be at a point where we're challenging for third and fourth, just in the terms of the squad progression, where we would have looked to be in like sort of a cycle under Ole, and we probably ahead of where we should be. But that's not to say that we are very good or we'll win this league. It is nice to see us challenging, and I think anybody would be stoked to be top halfway through the season, which I think a lot of fans are. But there's no reason to get carried away. We're not going to win the league.
But Gary Neville has been telling everyone that you should be getting carried away because the last time you're on top of the log was 2013 in January. And you won that season under.
Technically, at some point under Jose, we were top for like a week.
Sometime in 2017 or something.
Yeah, when the season we came second. But like, yeah, it's been a long time. I've kind of forgotten how it feels to be top of the log. Like I don't know.
Rarefied air. A rarefied air. I want to use Wahid's example here because the problem is that the dog doesn't know. It's caught the car. It's not quite not knowing what to do with it. The dog's trying to drive the car, and that's the difference, right? In the sense that what we also have in this perfect storm, and I like to put that, is that yes, this is an indictment on where the league is at the moment because everybody's been in a weird form slump. Yet Liverpool have somehow managed to maintain some sort of consistency, but that's been how they've been playing for the last couple of years. You're looking at your Man Cities, who should be further up than they are. And if anything, somehow Pep has gotten a free ride this season because nobody has criticized City for the absolute lack of effort that they've been putting in. Yet they're there or thereabouts. And I think that what you are seeing from a United team is that this terms of shifts in form. 11 unbeaten. Chelsea had a 15 game unbeaten run. That comes to an end, and all of a sudden, the world is flipped upside down. So I think what we have to be mindful of is the form bursts. How long can you maintain that form for, and where will that get you? I do think that the realistic United fans, which is what Wahid seems to be on the show at the moment, as opposed to on the social media streets, will tell you it's a step in the right direction, not the final step, right? And everybody else is sort of saying, guys, the league's not over yet, right? Maybe they're hoping that COVID gets really bad and they cancel it and this is the table and how it will sit. I don't know about that. But I do think that what we have to start looking at is saying any team that is consistently trying to chop and change between Eric Bailly, Lindelof, and the ghost of Nemanja Vidic is going to struggle. And you can't necessarily see those guys winning the league. That's my piece.
Okay. But Cyrus, he did say that it's an indictment on anybody else. So how does that's also a dig at everyone else in the league? Be like, wait, look, we're not that great, but you guys are worse.
We are worse, yes. You can't tell me that at this stage, 17 games into the season, Leicester, Everton, and Spurs are all challenging. Notice how I left even Spurs are challenging. It says a lot about where the league is.
But Dean, doesn't this
what we
mean?
want?
And we saw that. And what Cyrus is saying is exactly what we saw. We saw Dean counting chickens. You go on on a run of 3 bad games, and all of a sudden you're sitting 5th and 6th.
Yeah,
it just takes 2 or 3 bad games to go from 1st to 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th.
So what you guys are describing to me is the PSL. But anyway, Dean.
Basically the same.
Dean, so what do you make of all of this? You are on top of the log. You've slid back now. Tottenham's trying to find a rhythm back again. How do you think? Yes, obviously, Wahid's saying that they won't be able to finish the season at the top. But surely there's something to make into the fact that maybe Ole last year at 17 games had 23 points. This year at 17 games, he's got 36. Isn't there some sort of an improvement from them? And also, can they maintain this run? Yes, obviously, it depends. Because I think Manchester United I don't think they've had any COVID cases.
We had Pogba.
Yes, but that was like early in the season. Whereas Man City, half their team just was...
Don't get started on Villa.
Yeah.
No, but I do. You know what the thing is? And I think we said it, we mentioned it last week, that every team's having their bad spells just at different times, right? And much like Corona, hopefully everyone else's bad spells come in a second wave and a third wave. I'm just hoping United's come sooner rather than later. But
Arsenal have been in a bad spell since 2017.
Yeah, but Arsenal's got the Spanish flu, not Corona.
Before that.
Whoa, guys! Whoa. We're not talking about Arsenal here.
But I think it is very similar. I mean, you can definitely draw comparisons. There are guys that are obviously doing better, and especially with United. I pointed it out just before the Christmas period that I think Pogba coming back, and I said last week as well, Pogba coming back has had a big, or not coming back, but kind of getting more consistent game time has had a big impact on that United team. And you can really see it in the results. I mean, the last 8 games, he's played 90 minutes in 6 of them. And of those games, United have won every single one except for City, which was the most boring game any of us have ever watched. So Pogba coming back and getting more consistent game time has been a big impact in my mind. Him getting the goal last night and getting a few assists. I think if that sort of run continues, I think we'll see more good things from United. But having said that, I think a lot of the other teams are also starting to kind of get over this inconsistency. You see City obviously coming back with their two games in hand. They go to 35 points. That's only 1 point behind United. So it's definitely, I think the race is now probably going to take a little bit more shape. Everton, I don't see staying up there. Obviously, Spurs are going to win the league this season, so we'll come back up. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that I more wanted to draw the attention to is leading from our Pogba conversation is more about what someone on this panel says about Pogba. And for that, I would like to share my screen and just draw attention to certain things that someone has mentioned of that player, which has been kind of impactful on the way United have played. So just over a month ago, as you can see, just over a month ago, it's
don't let the door hit you on the way out, Pogba. Yeah, we see you there. We see you there, Wahid.
Wahid, just over a month ago, very much criticized the one key player.
So last night, I maintain everything I put in that tweet. I will not celebrate anything Paul Pogba does on the field for Man United anymore. The man has chatted in the media through his agents. There's obviously games and agendas going on. I feel like he's done it too many times for me to ever overlook this again. Yes, he's a fantastic player. Yes, he can be world-class. He's not always world-class. But my tweets here, I don't think are about his footballing ability as much as how he affects the squad. And I don't think he's a good influence to have around the place.
So here we go. This is what Wahid said for all those who are probably listening to the podcast. Don't let the door hit you on the way out at Paul Pogba with a very, I think you were swearing there. That's the swearing emoticon.
That's the angry swearing one.
Yeah, that red one with the swear words. And then 5 days later, that was the first one was on the 7th. 5 days later on the 12th, he says leadership failures to allow the virus, that is Pogba, to start in the derby. He could have a blinder today. I don't care. He spat on the club's badge one too many times now, and I want him out. His situation is untenable and shouldn't be part of the squad at the moment.
Guys, the backstory there is that 5 days before the derby, as Raiola often does, creates an instance of putting Pogba's name into the media for reasons other than football, and he often chooses big games to do that. He's done it before, just before a City derby, where he's come out and said Manchester City want to buy him. And I don't understand the end game. United are on a run of good form. I can't remember the previous game, but we had just come off like a seriously good win, and then Raiola decides to go into the media with these comments. So.
Well, Wahid, both of those tweets that you make come in December, which is a month before the transfer window opens. And so you've got some big games, but also the potential of a big move. And there was a thing that came out recently that showed the football representatives with and how much they're making. So different sports agents across the world, from baseball, NFL, NBA. And Mino Raiola is way up there in terms of his earnings, with his biggest client being Paul Pogba. So if you're Raiola, you want Pogba to move because you need to get paid.
And that game that you're talking about, Wahid, that you had won was the West Ham game where the fans were booing when the players were taking the knee and the black players did what they needed to do. And Pogba scored in that game. We've got a comment on YouTube, so I'm just going to put it out there from Bailey Sports. He says, Man United was first in the Champions League at the halfway stage and got knocked out of the group stage. They bottled 4 semi-finals under Ole. United ain't winning the league, and it's from an Arsenal fan. Yeah, what do you think?
I forgot about the Champions League situation.
Haven't we all? It's incredible when you're up at the summit smelling really clean oxygen, forgetting all of the absolute dross that's happened in between. And I think this is what happens in a season. It ebbs and flows. For all of the getting knocked out of the Champions League, it's going to come back to bite, because obviously Europa League, you did qualify for that, right? Anyway,
yeah, we have to play Rails this year. I don't think we're going to win that either.
but the point being that we have got such short memories. So all of us as football fans are just constantly going from absolute desperation to sudden jubilation, because all we ever go from is result to result. And every result is either crisis or it is the next best thing since sliced bread. And that's a big problem, because there's no patience anymore. And this goes back to a point about Frank Lampard that I've seen uttered often, and the same thing with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and the same with Mikel Arteta. At what point do you say, let the man have some time? It will be terrible for a period, but once everybody gets and buys into what they're trying to do, we will then see what the fruits of the hard labor will be.
Well, in the case of Lampard, don't play Mason Mount. In the case of Arteta, please do play Emil Smith-Rowe every single game, please. But okay, guys, I want to shift the conversation to the weekend, because obviously this is the moment where we will see the championship credibility of this United side, because they go up against number 2. United wins at Anfield. They have a 6-point gap at the top, and somehow Dean's thoughts of catching United seemingly start to fade there, because now the gap's even a little bit larger than everybody else. What are you guys expecting of the game? Because if you look at United's this run of form that they've been in these 11 games, the only 2 they played Everton. They beat Everton. At the time, Everton was ahead of them in the league, and that was a statement win. Then they went on and played Manchester City, which was a derby game. They were in and around each other at the time, and I think City were ahead, and they drew that. Outside of that, they did come up against Leicester. They drew with Leicester. But in this run of games, it was Leeds, it was Sheffield, it was West Ham. You could make a case for West Ham to say it was a great game. Do you see this Liverpool team being able to stop this Manchester United train that seemingly is rolling through every town by town and collecting names?
I 100% think so. I think Klopp will get those players so fired up, especially given their bad run of results previously. And we saw Klopp start his mind games afterwards with the whole penalty, conversation that he had after that game with the reporter. That's all to get, under the United sort of skin, get under their sort of players, and kind of also put a fire under some of those Liverpool guys. We've seen them do it previously, where they have a bad run and then they just come back. And especially now having this little midweek break, I think it only bodes well for a Liverpool win. The other thing is obviously that game is Liverpool at home, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Liverpool at home is a very different prospect to Liverpool away. So,
but United away is also a very different prospect to United at home.
Exactly, I was going to say that. United away form is obviously better. So I think it will be tight, but I do see Liverpool coming out on top purely because of the little break that they've had. Klopp will be able to kind of gather those troops together a little bit more, I think, for a game, especially United. And because of the fact that they went above them and all those sort of, pressure points that will be on those Liverpool players, that they'll want to get one back at United and to kind of keep them quiet. So I think it'll be a great game, but I definitely do see Liverpool coming away with one from there.
On the converse, I think that Ole could get his players finally really fired up and say that this is your moment. This is the moment that we've been building up to. You've got a game against your fiercest rivals to put a statement in the league and say Man United are back. Man United are back, and we're going to go 6 points ahead at the top of the league by winning this game. So it goes both ways. And yes, people have questioned Ole about whether he can fire up his troops. His record in big games is pretty impressive. It's not like he's any slouch in big games. And if he can get his squad fired up for this game, if Bruno Fernandes in particular can have a bit of a grip between his teeth, he can take a game like this by the scruff of the neck and take it to Liverpool. My personal feeling is this will end in a draw, with both teams a little bit more scared to lose than willing to go out and risk it for the win. That's my feeling here. Both teams will be too scared to lose, and you'll end up seeing a draw. I feel.
But you've just told us that obviously you see the team and Manchester United might not finish the league at 1. surely that mentality, and possibly even with Ole saying that we don't win the league 17 games in, would give them the opportunity to go out and pretty much make Liverpool pay for everything that they've done over the past year, because obviously now it's 1919. Right, the way you describe it seems like it's a team
Not
who's holding
1919, it's 2019.
2019, yes. But the way you describe it is, it seems as though it's a Manchester United now, a team that are holding on to something that's important, where it's a free hit. The reason why Leicester in that season did so well and they kept on winning is because whenever they came up against a big team, they didn't sit back, they rammed through them.
Well, Man United can't exactly come up against a bigger team.
Yeah, I just to jump in here, because I think there's two things that we have to get wholly correct here. First and foremost, United are not an attacking team by any stretch of the imagination. They play to their opponents and they have game plans for that. So what you have here is a United team that would invariably sort of try and counterattack and hit Liverpool in the break, and a Liverpool team that knows no other way than to just go for it. So there are two teams that are going to potentially give us a really good game, because United will try and soak up as much pressure as possible to hit them. The other thing here really is when it comes to what the mindset will be. Now, I don't think that Ole will actively be out there telling people, yes, we're going to go for the game. I think what he's going to tell his players is, this is your chance to prove why you are at Man United in the first place. This game is not about the league. It's about getting one over our rivals, and we need to remember that. The Liverpool guys have a far better, or rather a far more important reason for trying to push, which is their form has been absolutely woeful because it's been up and down. They need to try and get some form and some momentum to actually make a statement to say we are the champions. So I think that you've got those two mindsets at play here. And the reality is, I think this will be a good game. I do think it might end in a draw, though I sneakily feel that Liverpool will finally unlock all of those major issues that have been at the back for United that people haven't necessarily been testing, because you haven't had quick attackers like Salah and Mane consistently hitting United through a 90-minute game. It just hasn't happened this season.
Again. So those type of players are wide players, and I actually think that in our wide areas, our defense is actually pretty good. It's when we've got fast players coming at a very good but slow defender in Harry Maguire. It's when you've got a fast player through the middle is when Man United start to really struggle. And I think that Liverpool's fast players attacking, so for example, Mane against Wan-Bissaka is a battle that is going to be pretty entertaining to watch, because Wan-Bissaka is very good at defending against players like Mane. Luke Shaw, we're not sure how he goes, but I think we may double up on that side. I think we might go with Luke Shaw at left centre back and Tellez at left wing back.
But
So here,
okay.
So we've got a comment on Twitter that talks about Liverpool's struggles, because I think you guys are still very strong on Man United getting a draw out of this game.
Absolutely.
If Liverpool go with Fabinho and Henderson as the centre-half pairing, United will have to fancy their chances. Surely Liverpool will have to sign a centre-back in this window, and I think we all agree on that. But what happens in a situation where on game day you look at the team list and it's Fabinho and Henderson at centre-back? Does that give United some sort of a, okay, guys, here's an opening. Here's the opening. Just as you spoke about Maguire being attacked down the middle.
How many games have Liverpool played with their makeshift centre-back pairings and gotten results? This is also something that we're not necessarily talking about enough. They haven't necessarily been the best. It's not their best pairing ever, but in essence, they've managed to win games quite unconvincingly, but they're still winning games. And I think that's one of the critical things that we have to look at here. What we're also looking at is a United team that has the potential to break down most defenses, especially when they get the ball in the right areas. But I think that just to counter Wahid's point about the wide players facing up against the right back and left back, Mane and Salah might start wide, but often attack into that gap between the right back and the centre back. And that's clearly where United have big problems at the moment, is the communication between your fullback and your centre back. And because you've been rotating your centre backs either through injury or form, you don't necessarily have people with the best communication. Is Wan-Bissaka better with a Lindelof or with a Bailly? Or we've already seen Maguire wrestle Luke Shaw to the ground to try and get him out of the way and make situations worse. So the thing is, now you're having to rely on these guys to keep out a Liverpool team that has those guys as your attacking, basically your prongs of the attack. But the reality is that although they do score a lot of goals, there will be a lot of shots on target coming from the likes of Wijnaldum and potentially Firmino, who Lord knows what he'll do on the day. He's been an enigma this season. So I think both will fancy their chances, but I think that United might be at a greater risk because of the fragilities that haven't been tested enough versus the makeshift Liverpool centre-back pairing.
What Cyrus talking about just shows the squad harmony that Liverpool have, that they can go to a point where they're losing players, they're losing important players like Van Dijk and Matip and basically their defense at some point, and still continue winning games. I remember that when under Fergie, it was probably around the 2010-11 mark, there were times when we'd lose our complete defense. We'd be playing Michael Carrick at centre-back with Patrice Evra as his partner. We'd be playing Darren Fletcher at right-back. And we'd still win games. It's not pretty on the eye, but you still win games. And that's what's important. It's just continually sticking over those 3 points every week. And Liverpool have of that at the moment. They've learned how to do that.
But you see, my thing is from a Liverpool perspective, if you're sitting at Liverpool, right? So obviously we're sitting here and we know that Salah and Mane are just going to cut inside. And then it's going to cause United problems. Obviously, Klopp knows that. So obviously that's what they're going to be practicing the entire week, right? And having said that, I also think he will have developed a plan to just keep Bruno Fernandes quiet. Because if you keep Bruno Fernandes quiet in that Man United team, chances are they're not going to be able to score a goal. They just, they might get a lucky shot. You keep quiet, Wade.
Yeah.
They might get
it's time to shine.
But honestly, he is that engine, and as much as fine, I spoke about Pogba being that sort of player that comes in and he is creating a lot, but I think Bruno is that guy that every single United fan will agree that he's been the best signing they've had in a long time, and he's really the player that makes them go at the moment. So if you can develop a plan to keep that man quiet, United are going to really struggle going forward. They might, I'm not saying that they won't score, but I think it'll be a lot more tougher for them to score. And obviously, Klopp's going to have everyone in the league probably knows that. So, and he's got the players at his disposal to be able to keep them quiet. In the likes of Fabinho and probably playing Thiago in that role, he can kind of dominate that midfield and then he can keep Bruno quiet. And that's just going to prevent United from pushing.
Thiago.
Well, I get you. It's just so happened that as Bruno Fernandes has started to tire, and you see, like, it looks like he's carrying United on his back he has been for a full year, and he's looking a little bit tired, he's looking a little bit jaded, and just as that's happening, you've got Pogba stepping up to the plate, and he's coming back into form. And I've got nothing good to say about the man, but from a footballing perspective, he's been very good for the last 6 weeks. So United do have this is again a perfect storm of our catalyst starting to tire, our other world-class player starting to really hit his stride in the season, and remembering that we do have the artillery on the bench in Donny van der Beek to come in the season and replace.
He's playing for United.
We've got a comment here as well asking about Donny.
I think Van der Beek is going to be really important second half of the season as the likes of Fernandes and Pogba start to really get tired and start to need game management.
I agree with that.
So to close it off, I'm going to ask you about your predictions. But Wahid, how does it feel to now finally be the hunted? To play every game knowing you have to get 3 points. If not, it's over.
I'm just enjoying it while I'm here, and it's probably going to last a week and a half. When I come back,
can't those bloody chickens, Wahid.
Okay, so predictions, guys. Sai, I'm going to start with you. What do you think this game is going to end up being?
My feeling is that this will probably be like a 3-1 win for Liverpool, And the key players here, and the reason why I say this is, as much as we talked about Mane and as much as we talked about Salah, I think that the one player we haven't spoken about enough and who will be potentially the game breaker will be Robertson. It's one thing trying to stop the attacking midfielders going for you. Robertson's distribution from the left flank really has been unlocking teams left, right, and center. The other thing that we haven't seen happen at Liverpool yet is Thiago hitting his stride. He had a great debut game, and everyone was like, oh my word, what have they added to the squad? And I do think that this might be the game where he might not necessarily start, but I think if Klopp introduces him, or rather when he does, he might be the kind of person who can unlock that United team and really cause problems. I just look at United, and maybe it's because I'm not a true believer in the likes of Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial, that I just don't see enough of an attacking threat from them consistently to really see this being one where United run away with it. But that's my prediction.
Okay. What's your score?
3-1 Liverpool.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot of points for all the Mo Salah captaincy holders. Dean, what do you think? How do you think is the game going to go?
So my thing is, if Liverpool can get on the attack early and put United in a bit of a problem early on, I think it's going to be a bit of a free-for-all. So in my mind, if Salah and Mane can start causing problems from about 10 minutes on, I can really see this getting to like a 3-0, 4-0 situation. Really, I honestly do. And honestly, I hope so, just so I can see Wade's face next week.
I'm not going to be
Okay, but I think it's going to go one of two ways. If Liverpool can put the screw or turn the screws on early, I think it can get a bit of 3-0, 4-0. If it's a bit of an evenly tied game and United come out and try and play a bit of football, I think Liverpool will still get away with it, but more 2-1 kind of scoreline.
Okay, I'm going for the score draw, largely because I do think Manchester United have something that they can bring. I think if they can give Cavani some sort of run, I'm hoping it's a 60-minute run in the game to start off with, because the team looks much more balanced with him leading the line. And as a goal poacher with those two, I don't want to call them Tweedledum and Tweedledee because that's an Arsenal thing. But Fabinho and Jordan Henderson, you might find a situation where if the right ball comes in from Rashford near post, something could happen. And obviously we can't also take away the threat of a penalty that might end up with Manchester United and Klopp complaining again. But I do think it'll be a score draw. I think might be a 2-2, very entertaining. Someone's going to do some last minute heroics to close it out. Wahid, it's your team, my man. What are you hoping for?
You took the word out of my mouth.
But also you're not going to be watching because you're getting married, so congratulations. Picking a wedding day when Manchester United played Liverpool.
Someone said, congrats, you played.
So, what do you think is gonna happen?
Yeah, I was going to go with a similar to sort of storyline to you and Paul. I was going to say a 2-2 draw with the last minute heroics from someone or the next. I almost feel like it might be United going 2-1 up and then Liverpool chasing it at the end and sneaking an equalizer. I don't think Cavani is going to start the game. I must be honest with you. I think that Ole will opt for three at the back, which means that he might revert to Rashford and Martial up front to try and stretch those Liverpool too. When you've got faster players, players as fast as Rashford and Martial, I think it might trouble non-conventional centre-backs like Fabinho and Henderson if they are to be the pairing. I know that Cyrus doesn't believe in a player who's scored 14 goals this season in 28 games and 22 goals last season, carrying the whole of the UK on his back. But okay, we'll see.
Let me just say something to you. This season alone, Werner has scored 11 or 12 games for Chelsea, and we're not saying he's looking fantastic. So scoring 14 goals this season, well done, Marcus Rashford. I'm just not there. I think it's incredible. And he's incredible. As a human being, an unbelievable
great human being.
But I just don't know if and this is like I've said before on this show, I see shades of early Ronaldo at United where he was just sort of caught between am I a winger or am I a forward, and United just weren't able to get the very best out of him. And I think this is potentially what I have an issue with Rashford, but I do think consolation Cavani is the one who's going to score for United. I think that's where the goal is going to come from. Don't forget that this is the kind of game one Mate will come in with something from out of left field, and Scott McTominay is going to get sent off.
I love that kid. I love that kid.
Okay, guys, we're gonna end the cheap seats portion of our show now, or the Premier League portion of our show now. We're gonna move over to the fantasy Premier League portion. Gonna play our little jingle to send us back in, and get yourselves ready. Calm down, take water, whatever you need, and we'll be back in a couple of. Okay, so we're back to our FPL section of the show. One thing we didn't mention in the previous portion was Percy Dow, which was mentioned in the comments. So we'll just put it out there. And we'll talk about him as an FPL option because he's 5.5, and I love the fact that he's 5.5. I just can't get him into my team right now. I'm going to have to panel beat some people out. We're in the middle of that. I don't know what you would call it. It's a very bad game week. It's a shortened game week. It's hell. For managers right now, especially those who ran away and used all their chips in the first half of the season, and now they don't know what to do because they just stuck with 3 players that are available.
You don't have to call me out like that, Paul.
Okay, the question to start off is: how many players do you have available for this game week? If not, what happened?
Okay, where do we start?
You go. Sorry.
I played my free hit. I have 15 players available. I took the gamble on the United spine of Maguire, disallowed goal. Fernandes did nothing. Cavani did nothing.
Well, of the entire squad, I have 6 players who could earn points, and I know one of them is not getting any game time because it's one of my reserves. I needed to just put some money on somebody, and I did. But I took the view that I will score very poorly, but I also realized because I was going to play my wild card and do all sorts of insane things, and then I was like, hang on, the likelihood is I'm not going to go top of the entire league. So maybe what I do is I look at the people around me and think they will probably have bad game weeks too. So therefore, I didn't truly invest in this week. I'm looking at the next double game week and thinking that's where it's my time to shine.
And Cyrus, if you're looking at those around you, that's myself and Wahid. I used my free hit. I still had a free hit available.
For
the first time, I think in my FPL history, I've got Kane and Son leading the line, hoping to take out a Fulham that we had 3 days to prepare for them. So hopefully something's going to happen because Bruno doesn't want to play for me, nor does Seamus Coleman, who came on as a sub.
Funny story about Bruno. I've always not picked him because my idea was that if I pick him, it's bad. It's
bad juju.
It's bad juju.
Yeah.
Last night was the first time I picked him. Bad juju.
And there we go.
Out of everyone's fantasy team from now on. Drop Bruno.
So that was me. Dean, how's your week going so far?
Yeah, so I played free hits as well, and also betted on Sheffield, 1 point Sheffield, never winning, never scoring. Put all my money on Newcastle defense. Carlo got Clark and Wilson.
Oh, brilliant.
So I checked at about 60 minutes, it was 0-0, and then all the points came up. It was like I had 18 points, scored that goal, and I went down to 6. So again,
but that's still not bad, considering that a lot of us are just like, well, that might be, we're dreaming of getting those 6 points, and you've still got other players to score for you.
Yeah, fair. So we're just kind of hoping on, obviously, Kane to pull it out the bag and score a double hat trick against Fulham.
Yeah, I think everyone wants Fulham to catch 10 right now to save their week. Okay, so now we're moving into the double game week, and that presents new challenges for everybody. I think there's extra fixtures. It's not everyone playing twice. There's I think about 12 teams that are going to be playing twice, and in that presents a problem in itself. Also, because we're in COVID, there are chances of having another double game week somewhere along the line. And in January, we've gotten the new wild card. So if you haven't used your first one, I don't know if that goes away. You might have two, which I think is wild if you have two. But you could use that. You still have all the chips that you have. There's a bench boost that you can use. If you haven't used a free hit, this could be your moment. What's the strategy, Wahid, that you're going into in this double game week? Is this an opportunity to set your team up, set your squad up for the rest of the season with a wild card?
Yeah, so I'm not sure which wildcard I'd go for because I only realized that there was a double game week coming after I played my free hit for this one here. And in retrospect, I should have kept my free hit for the double game week. You make more points that way. Having said that, I've done that before, where I've gone and played a free hit in a double game week. And what I've generally found is that managers use a lot of rotation in a double game week. So you might go balls to the wall on captaining De Bruyne, and Pep actually goes, you know what, he'll bench one of the games. So it's always a gamble in the double game week because there's usually a bit of rotation. So my thing with a double game week is to pick my squad, and if they have two games, then great, and ride that wave, and usually just pick your captain from someone who has two games. But I wouldn't go play a free hit on a double game week. Yeah.
Sai, what are you planning for this game week?
I'm sure you can tell just how enthused I am because FPL is just FML, and I think the crazy thing about it is that when we started this whole show and we talked about fantasy stuff, and I took my notes when I listened to AB and I listened to Wahid and the rest of you guys talk about stuff, I was like, okay, I'm going to triple captain at some point in the season. Wait for a double game week. So that's what I've been waiting for. Every time I think, okay, this might be it, I'm like, nope, this is the one. So if I'm ever going to triple captain somebody, it's happening this week. And there's a host of options to have that. I do have my wild card available, and there's changes in my team that I like to make. There's certain players, like for instance Luca Dean, who I'd completely missed that he was back in action, who has always been a fairly good option when it comes to fantasy because he offers so much. I'm looking at rejigging pretty much my entire team. There's certain players who have served me well and I think will do relatively well for a long period of time. But is this really the time to be banking on Jamie Vardy? Hashtag I don't know. So I'm just looking at where I can actually make some minor tweaks in order to bring more impactful players in, and then also to try and rethink how I view strikers in this league, because it doesn't seem to be a strikers league. It seems to be more a midfielders league. Yeah, and so spending so much on strikers is actually shooting myself in the foot. And with Dominic Calvert-Lewin out, I mean, God, I don't know, guys. I don't know. These anchors are just falling away. My ship is floating at sea. So I'm going to hope for the best. That's what I'm doing. I'm triple captaining somebody, and I'm hoping for the best.
I know with the fixtures looking the way they are, with the fixtures the way they are, it might be very tempting to go with a City player as a triple captain. The only problem is that game number 2 is against Aston Villa, and you're just trying to figure out if you're going to triple captain someone based on the idea that they're going to play 2 games for a game to be cancelled. It's a big risk there.
So
exactly.
On the Villa note, the players should be out of quarantine by Thursday, which is tomorrow. And obviously they've moved their game back. I think their game is now moved to Sunday. And then obviously they've got that second game. So that midweek game will still be there unless Villa can't complain right now. They're going to have to figure out a way. But seems like that those Villa youngsters who played against Liverpool might just get a chance somewhere along the line during the week. So it's still a very fair look to have a Man City player, especially with the fact that if Pep is hating the fact that Manchester United's at the top of the log. He's probably going to want to chase it, and this is his moment to try and get quick 6 points without doing much. Dean, what's your strategy? I think you are planning to do the wild card. Sai told us that he wants to rejig his strikers. Where are you going to be panel beating your squad?
Yeah, so what I've been doing is the fixtures for double game week 19 came out in like mid-December. So what I was trying to do was make my transfers from about 4 game weeks back, in particular focus to have guys that are going to play 2 game weeks. So I've got 11 guys at the moment that have double game weeks on 19. The one thing though is you can't actually ignore some of the guys that have single games, even though it's a double game week. And particularly Spurs are playing Sheffield. So Sheffield away. So those are the kind of games you can't really ignore Son or Kane in that kind of game, because if it were any other game week, you would be putting the captain's armband on one of them and it would be fine. So I've tried to get a mixture of kind of targeted fixtures like Spurs against Sheffield, but then also looking at getting the rest of my guys to be double game week and then to bench boost as well. So trying to leave the wild card for a bit. The other thing, just on a slight differential captain, West Ham's fixtures are Burnley and West Brom both at home. So someone like a Souček or something like that could be a good differential captain for both of those game weeks, because as Wahid said, rotation is probably a big factor, but Souček looks to be a mainstay in that team. So he's definitely going to get 4 points, probably hit that with 8, and he more than likely comes up with a goal. It's kind of a good choice.
Thomas Souček, okay, that's an interesting one. He's still on my team. I'm not getting him out. Yeah, but he's always been very good. But okay, let's go to the captaincy options. I'm just going to go through the teams that are playing, the big teams with the players who I think are captain that are playing again a second time. So I see Manchester United have in that game week 19. Manchester United have Fulham as well as Liverpool. Yes. So I'm not sure if you want to captain a Bruno there, but that second Fulham game could give you a lot of joy if you hold on to possibly an assist from Bruno in that one. Liverpool have United and Burnley. City have Aston Villa and they play Crystal Palace, which based on what Crystal Palace looks like right now, you can find yourself in a lot of with some joy there. The interesting ones that have a second game, look at Leeds have Brighton and Southampton, which if you want to maybe try and see if Patrick Bamford's still good enough for a differential.
These are the greatest team in the world who get thrashed every week.
Their PR department needs to win the World Cup.
And then obviously you've got Leicester City playing Southampton and Chelsea. That's probably not going to work. Southampton have Leicester and Leeds. So there's quite a few. West Ham have West Brom and Burnley, which I think, as Dean said, could be something very nice. Out of Chelsea's stable, you've got Fulham and Leicester. So I think we've all agreed you're probably going to captain someone who's playing twice. Obviously, unless you want to go with Kane and Son and hoping that they rampage through Fulham. Where do you guys think that captaincy is gonna fall on? Is it Mo Salah and hope that he comes out with a goal against United and pray he gets a haul on the back end?
Let's actually throw a question at Cyrus. Which Chelsea player would you captain?
Well, that's interesting, actually, because I was thinking about that right now. And in essence, it's tough to really call because you don't really know who Lampard's going to pick at this point. And
it's 10 players and Mason Mount.
Well, there's that. The thing about it, though, is that Mason, he can actually give you some points. Just remember, he's also he's the key corner taker. So it's not as if he's not giving people points, because Chelsea have been one of the better teams from corners this season. But I don't know if you're going to be looking at Mason Mount as being your captaincy option. I would potentially look at a breakout Pulisic if you're going to captain a Chelsea player, because I do think that he's underperformed since he's come back. But also, as we've seen, with COVID causing chaos with the players' bodies, Kai Havertz has looked terrible, but he's also had a struggle trying to recover from having had COVID. So people are trying their best to get back into form, and I think Pulisic might actually be the one if you're going to captain a Chelsea player. I think he's probably going to play both games, but then he's also made of the same stuff as Darren Anderton. So Lord knows if he'll be fit enough to play 2 games. It's an old football reference. Sick note, Anderton. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My bad. Paper mache for those who don't know.
Yeah. Dean, what are you thinking from a captaincy perspective?
So, as I mentioned, I'm probably going to put it on Kane just because based on tonight's result against Fulham, I'll see what's going on there and then probably put it on Kane. But if you're looking at someone who's playing 2 games, can't look past De Bruyne if you've got him. Or if you want to get him. The interesting thing is City weren't supposed to have a double game week in 19. That only came about because of all the Aston Villa issues that have been occurring with COVID and stuff. So their double game week has only come into play recently. So I don't have him in my team currently, but based on what they do against Brighton, might look to use a transfer there and bring him in. But yeah, I wouldn't look past a City asset. And again, talking to that sort of rotation era, you've got United, you've got Liverpool, Fulham. So obviously they're going to go all out against Liverpool, and you might see some of the guys being rested against Fulham.
There's no way they're resting Bruno.
Yeah.
There's no way they're resting Bruno.
I actually think it might be a game where Bruno sits on the bench and lets Donny van de Beek play or Mata.
It might just be that. It's going to be like that Mo Salah game against Crystal Palace where all of a sudden they'll give Bruno a game.
So we need Bruno to captain himself.
Well, someone's been Patrick Bamford's been captaining himself all season, and I don't know if you guys think he's having a good season or not. 100 points, not too bad.
Yeah, he's doing quite well.
Yeah, so I think on my end, I'm looking towards City. The City players, maybe even a cheeky Raheem Sterling. He's so expensive though. But
Raheem Sterling is like a Tag Heuer watch. They are really great to look at, but they work the same as other watches do. So I don't necessarily know if you're going to spend all that money on Sterling because he hasn't had a great season, and I've been burned by him. Paul, I'm going to help you. Don't Raheem Sterling.
I'll listen to you, Si. But I was thinking about it because I think the last time I watched City play just before New Year's, Sterling and De Bruyne were looking pretty good, and they seem to be the only 2 to be driving the City team forward.
He is more frustrating than an empty Christmas stocking. It's not worth it. It's not worth it, Paul.
Yeah.
The other thing one there is Riyad Mahrez. Usually when he plays, he does something FPL wise. The problem
you just never know when he's going to play.
Yeah.
When he's going to play, yeah.
Yeah, well, he's on trial in my free hit team for this week. So if he does quite well, he might come back in. But
don't use that as being the reason why you think it. Pep is going to be watching you. Yeah. Pep is ridiculous. He hates FPL. You know, the only person you can guarantee is going to play is Kevin De Bruyne, and even then, you don't know what you're going to get.
Ruben Diaz has been a good pick for me so far.
Yeah. No, that's. Oh wait, you've got a centre back.
Yeah, the stars conspired. I had some. I picked Ruben Diaz.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so any games that you're thinking that someone might collect points, some cheeky points here and there that you think could be a differential?
Fulham, Edinson, Cavani.
Okay,
I think he could really trouble that Fulham defense. As with his movement, with his prowess in the box, I think he could be the differential. But what you need to try and figure out is when is he going to play? Is he going to get 30 minutes against Liverpool and 60 or 70 minutes against Fulham, or is it going to be the other way around? I don't think you're going to see Edinson Cavani playing 90 minutes in both. So if you want to pick him, you need to be aware of the fact that he's going to play bits and pieces in both games.
So pick him and pray that he plays against Fulham. That's pretty much what you're saying. But look, if Willian can cause trouble for that Fulham defense, pretty much ends in front. Okay. Sai, who do you think is going to have a cheeky game week?
Look, I've been hating on them because of the inconsistencies, but I think that if you're going to pick a team and somebody from a team, and you're looking at like you say, a cheeky one, I'd look at somebody from Leeds. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be Bamford. I do think though that Leeds against Brighton is
Rodrigo's been quite good.
Yeah, I think Rodrigo's going to be a fairly good option if you're looking for somebody extra in that team. And I think that Leeds have to start getting some form. As much as, and this is the thing, is that as much as people have talked about Leeds, it's not actually really the Leeds love you're seeing, it's the Marcelo Bielsa love. Everybody thinks he's, walking on water and doing what have you. The reality is he's come into a league that is very, very tough. And yes, they play some really interesting football, exciting at times, really horrid at others. Leeds versus Brighton, and it's a home game. I can almost guarantee you Leeds are going to win that one, and they're going to win it fairly convincingly.
Percy Dow scoring on Saturday, by the way, just letting you know.
I wish I believed that. The only problem with that is he's just gotten to the team. He's probably miles ahead of the rest of the other players, like a Troussard or a Mopé. Or in fact, there are so many Brighton players who I just think, how are they even playing?
All of them. I don't understand why Wahid said we must look at Brighton.
Tariq
Lalana. The worst call ever.
Yeah. Look, I do like the look. Dunk's not a bad player, and White's not a bad player.
Ben White will play for a much better side one day.
And Tariq Lamptey too. Tariq Lamptey has got a heck of a lot of talent. It's the rest of that team is just it's a mess. And I think Leeds are going to really show them up. And then when you look at it, who are they playing after that? Southampton. And that game could go either way. And if you're looking for somebody to score points in that game, you probably will get it. I think Southampton might win that game, but I do think that Leeds will make it very, very tasty. So Leeds.
But there's one thing that I think we've probably forgotten is that Danny Ings is back for Southampton, and that's another cheeky captaincy call there. He could come out with a goal against Leicester and also cause Leeds some trouble.
But in order for Ings to score, you need to have the rest of the guys playing. And, as much as I've talked nonsense about Marcus Rashford, James Ward-Prowse is got to be one of the most overrated players I've seen, not because he's a bad player, but because everything hinges on his free kick ability. None of his in-game stuff actually matters. It's just him taking a dead ball. And I think that's a problem for me. I don't know if Southampton can free Ings. Maybe that's where Theo Walcott does some stuff, but I'm not sure if he's injured or not.
Okay. Okay, gents. I think that's the way we're going to probably close it off. All the best for the double game week. Cyrus, this is your time to shine, so all the best.
You know it.
Dean, you're already at the top. You don't need much, touch, but have a good weekend. And Wahid, congratulations on
it's
getting
a triple
married.
game week. It's a triple game week for Wahid.
Yeah. He just doesn't know it yet.
He better captain himself. Pull a Bamford. Congratulations.
Yes, man. Yes, all the best for you and your wife and your marriage. So to all the viewers and listeners on the podcast, please do have a great weekend of football, and we'll come back on the other end having laughs and banter about whose team is no longer on top of the log. But until then, from myself, Cyrus, Wahid, and Dean, all I'm going to say is, le sale, cacajizo.